Good Monday evening, Bayou Blitz family and all of Who Dat Nation. I am Bob Rose. I am one of your hosts for the Bayou Blitz. And joining me, as always, is my partner in crime. And as we kick off this Monday night edition of Saints football. And I don't think I have the voice anymore to pull off a dandy Don Meredith, and I'm sure that I will violate copyright laws all over the place if I try to redo Hank Williams Jr. So yeah, I will just say, Brendan, welcome to Monday Night Football.
Yeah, you too, Bob. I don't have it here. I think my dad's kind of inherited it over the years between the two of us with Saint stuff. But we used to have a little like doll, and you pressed the button and he danced and sang Hank Williams Jr. And he had the Saints helmet and everything. Pretty cool. So I kind of wish that was back here. I could just press a button. But we'll
yeah, for sure. Dust it off. Yeah, find it, dust it off, get it ready for next season.
Sounds good. Absolutely. Well, I think it's somewhere in my dad's basement, but that's another story for a different time. But Bob, it's the most crucial game of the year for the New Orleans Saints, right? And everything's kind of bounced their way this week with the Falcons losing. This is a clear opportunity for New Orleans to get within a half game or a game of Tampa Bay. And then you got the whole NFC South all sitting pretty and dancing and saying we're a game away from the playoffs, which is incredibly sad in a way with how bad this division's been all year long. But tonight's going to be a lot of fun. You know, you have two teams that oddly enough are both really struggling offensively. I don't know if I've ever been able to say that about a Tom Brady team all these years, but struggling offensively, but both these defenses are phenomenal. And as we open up the show, Bob, I want to read you a quote, and I don't want to mess it up, so I'll pull out the old cellular device because I have it here ready. This is coming from Mike Triplett, either yesterday or this morning, and it was a quote from Christian McCaffrey, who played the Saints last week in that 13-0 victory, at least for San Francisco. McCaffrey says, quote, "That's one of the best defenses in the league. I don't care what the numbers say," end quote, talking about the New Orleans Saints. How can that defense show up big against Tom Brady, a guy that they've had their number on since he joined Tampa Bay back in 2020?
Well, listen, Dennis Allen and the New Orleans Saints defense have written the book on how to beat Tom Brady, and they've done so in textbook fashion. They held a 4-2 record against Brady since he joined the Buccaneers. And in both of those losses, Brady had very, very, very little to do with the outcome. It was all Tampa Bay's ability to get at least a little bit of a running game and 9 New Orleans Saints turnovers. So, A, if the Saints want to win the game, try not turning the ball over. But B, the Saints just have to continue doing defensively what they've always done against Tom Brady. And that is, A, not come at him with the same game plan, give him different looks. You're not going to confuse the 45-year-old quarterback, but you can at least keep him on his toes. Make him play all of his game up here rather than reactionary. And obviously, as anybody knows who's watched Tom Brady play for any of these years, if you beat Tom Brady around a little bit, hurry him, rush him, get very physical with him, he will get flustered. And that's my PG version of saying that he acts like an effing child, on the sidelines and in his mannerisms. In the 6 meetings, Brady's thrown 9 touchdown passes. Yeah, not bad. But he's thrown 8 interceptions, fumbled 3 times, been pressured 51 times, and sacked 15 times. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you beat Tom Brady.
Well, Bob, I'll tell you this. You did a better job with homework this week than just about any other Saints writer that I saw with some of those statistics. I mean, honestly, guys, if you didn't read any of Bob's work this week, he goes in-depth detail about how the Saints have hounded Tom Brady in the last 6 meetings. And Bob, here's the thing, is you even go back to week 2 where the Buccaneers beat the Saints in the Superdome 20-10, Brady's lone regular season victory against the Saints as a member of the Buccaneers. And you look at the statistics and you look at the game, and you go back and you watch some of the footage of the game. even in that one, Brady was flustered. He was
Mhm.
frustrated. He was breaking tablets. Also, guys, if that's a prop bet in Vegas tonight, please, 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 if it's a prop bet of 0.5, essentially, will or will not Tom Brady break a tablet, take the over. It's probably going to happen. I don't know if there's been a game that he's played New Orleans where it hasn't happened. But nonetheless, even in the losses, the Saints defense has really flustered Tom Brady. And I think a lot of tonight is going to be on the shoulders of the pass rush. And of course, you're going to be looking at Cameron Jordan, who's also pretty close to that New Orleans Saints all-time sack record, a career sack record that is. You're going to be looking at guys like Davenport. Turner's out, so can't say Peyton Turner. But one thing, Bob, you and I, we've been broken records all year about is what? And that's interior pass rush for New Orleans is going to be critical tonight, along with stopping the run. Now, there's a couple guys that are going to be questionable for today's game as we're waiting that final injury report. If Lattimore,
Brendan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I actually have it.
Bob Rose.
And out, no surprises. These were announced on Friday. Out, Jawan Johnson, Peyton Turner, PJ Williams, JT Gray. Inactive for this evening. No surprise to me. I expected it. Pete Werner, Lewis Kidd, Marshawn Lattimore will not play. On the Buccaneers side, Antoine Winfield, Mike Edwards, the safeties, cornerback Sean Murphy, Bunting, all inactive. Big hit for their secondary. Pro Bowl right tackle Tristan Wirfs inactive. Tight end Cameron Brate inactive. That's a little bit surprising. Wide receiver Brashad Perryman and quarterback Kyle Trask round out the Buccaneers inactive for tonight's game.
Well, there you go. No Marshawn Lattimore for New Orleans, no Pete Werner. So another big game for Caden Ellis upcoming. For New Orleans, who's been a really good surprise, a really nice surprise for the Saints this season, the way that he's played. Let's focus in on that pass rush. All-pro right tackle for Tampa Bay going to be out. That would be your Cameron Jordan matchup, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. What do you expect out of Cameron Jordan in this game? He himself has sacked Brady 3 times in the regular season. He's forced 2 fumbles as well. Like I said, I think a lot of the burden is going to be on his shoulders tonight to get into Brady's face and be disruptive. And if he's not able to be disruptive and hurry the quarterback, at least draw double team pressure and open up opportunities for other people. Do you see it that way, Bob? And who's a player that I may have not mentioned that could certainly have an impact on tonight's game?
Yeah, I do see it that way. Cam Jordan has had a very nice career against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's going to need to come up big tonight. He has played pretty well most of the season, one of the more consistent New Orleans defenders, but you need production out of Marcus Davenport from the other side, and when they rotate those ends in and out, to know Passanio and Carl Granderson have to come up big too. Again, like you pointed out, they're going to have to get pressures, rush, hit Brady, get him on the ground. But they also have to draw double teams. And if they do, the New Orleans defensive tackles have to take advantage of a thinner inside matchup against the Tampa Bay interior line that has often struggled this season. David Onyemata is another name to watch tonight. Kentavious Street, Shai Tuttle, Malcolm Roach, they've all had some nice moments, but Onyemata is physically your best defensive tackle. He has had very, very good games against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in the last 2 regular seasons, but they need Onyemata or one of those inside guys to create a lot of push inside. You need to completely stifle the Tampa Bay running game right off the bat. Do not let them get any confidence. And again, we said that the book on Brady was hit him early, hit him often, and hit him. Well, get that pressure in his face. He will fold like a child's chair every time. But you need to do it without blitzing. Tom Brady will eat a blitz alive. As most veteran quarterbacks would. And that's why the Saints have had success, is because it's not that they haven't brought Demario Davis on a blitz. It's that they haven't had to pressure Brady. And that's the key. You don't leave yourself vulnerable in coverage by sacrificing an extra defender to get pressure, because you're able to do it with one or two of your defensive tackles up front. And that's going to be the inside key to the major key to this game.
Bob, we talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary, and they're banged up. The Saints are a little banged up in their secondary as well. Who are you looking to step up and have a big game today for the New Orleans Saints? A lot of young guys that are going to be going up against Tom Brady, and you know, you might sit there and say, Brady against youngsters, I'm taking Brady. But these young cats for the New Orleans Saints, they've played extremely well in their young NFL career.
You're talking to Saints defensive backs?
Correct.
Yeah. And I'm sorry about my idiot dog. Not having Lattimore is key, because Lattimore has been Mike Evans' personal nightmare. But I'll tell you what, Alontae Taylor has played extremely well this season. He has a lot of Marshawn Lattimore in him. A physical defender who is athletic and very fluid, natural coverage abilities. Along with that, I know Paulson Adebo has had a rocky sophomore season, second season, but he's played better of late. And getting Bradley Roby back is huge, because defenses were just killing the Saints secondary by targeting either Chris Harris, Tyrann Mathieu, or PJ Williams, whoever was in the slot. Well, now you have Bradley Roby, and that's going to be key, because as much as Evans has done absolutely nothing against the Saints, Chris Godwin has been a Saints killer. Julio Jones, while on his last legs as a football player, Julio Jones has been a Saints killer. Scotty Miller is a Brady favorite, especially down the field. So you need a deep defensive backcourt. So again, not having Lattimore hurts, but the Saints still have the horses to match up with those big physical Tampa Bay receivers. And we keep talking about the pass rush being the key. One of the reasons that the pass rush is the key is because Lattimore in the secondary has not let Godwin, Evans, any of those other guys get free releases to give Brady a quick look so he can get the ball out of his hands in a half second up to a second. So those guys need to play physical coverage again tonight. I think they're up to it, but watch for safety help over the top from Mathieu and May. Those guys may have opportunities to make plays, something that we've seen very little of this year, and they're going to have to guard against coverage breakdowns. Because when the pass rush doesn't get to Brady, he does still have the arm to go down the field.
I'm glad that you said that. Coverage sacks have been a big part of the New Orleans Saints' success against Tom Brady. The secondary has been very, very good for the most part in these 6 meetings. Flipping to the offensive side of the ball for New Orleans, I certainly highlighted in my pieces this week, running the football is going to be vital. And this is a team that really struggled to run the football against San Francisco, the number 1 defense in the league last week. When Andy Dalton's your leading rusher, you didn't do a good job on the ground. Yeah. Let's just be honest. But the Saints will have Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, and Taysom Hill. I expect a heavy dose of all 3. I so very badly wanted to make Mark Ingram my X factor this week, but I just couldn't do it because I knew he wouldn't get the volume touches. I don't think Taysom Hill is going to get the volume touches either, but what Hill does for this offense, he's like the 6th man of a basketball team. Mm-hmm. He just jolts energy into the offense. I think that's going to be vital today, but the Saints still down some wideouts. But I look back to Chris Olave's first matchup against Tampa Bay. Different quarterback, different circumstances. He wasn't even a number 2 receiver on that team. He was the number 3 at that point before all the injuries piled up. But he had 13 targets in that game. And remember, if it wasn't for that crucial fumble late, which was it a fumble? Because last week's catch, not catch, anyway. Was it a catch? Was it a fumble? Who knows? If it was the same play this week, it might be different. But nonetheless, if it wasn't for that late, he has a crucial catch late in the ball game to give New Orleans a chance to get back into the ball game. So with all that said, different circumstance. Olave is your number 1 receiver today. Do you expect him to see double-digit targets yet again? And outside of Olave with Juwan Johnson out, who are the Saints looking for in crucial 3rd down situations and certainly in the red zone?
I do expect Olave to see at least 10 or 12 touches. Maybe more given depending on the circumstances of the game. He is your number one receiver, not just by default, but by far. And he's a much better football player than he was, in week 2. Most of those 13 targets back then were deep shots, clear out shots for Michael Thomas and the other guys underneath. Well, now Landry is the guy that gets targeted, Olave is the guy that gets targeted all over the field. Landry, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, and the just activated today, Kirk Merritt. They're going to be the complementary guys. They're the ones that are going to need to come up big. While Olave is going to get his looks and have his opportunities to make plays, Tampa Bay has a pretty physical secondary, and if Traquan or Marquez, and remember Callaway had 100 yards receiving in that 9-0 upset of Tampa Bay last year. Traquan Smith has had a couple key touchdowns in the last 3 or 4 meetings against Tampa Bay. So if one of those two guys, or Rashid Shaheed, I actually look for a big day from Shaheed today. If the Saints are going to win, if one of those guys can make plays, that's going to free up extra coverage on Olave. It's going to free up extra coverage that is going to be on Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield. And make no mistake, Kamara has to get heavily involved in this passing attack early in the game to keep his interest. I'm just calling it the way I see it. And really force those athletic Buccaneers linebackers, Devin White and Levante David, force them out of the tackle box and make them cover from sideline to sideline. If you do that, and a Callaway or a Trey or a Shaheed makes some plays, then your offense is actually going to be able to do something. But the focal point is always going to be Olave, Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill is going to be your inside runner. That's the guy that's going to benefit if Kamara and maybe an Adam Troutman at tight end can draw those out inside linebackers out wide a little bit.
Scoop says, Merritt, the training camp darling, is activated.
Yes, sir.
Preseason favorite, Kirk Merritt, active today. That's going to be an exciting thing. I think anytime you throw some training camp favorites into the lineup, it gets some people excited. I do want to talk about this, Bob. This is an interesting stat. This coming from Points Bet Sportsbook USA. Andy Dalton is 0-12 in his last 12 road primetime games. How does he change it tonight?
Great. Because as a personal side note, I am 71 points down going into my fantasy game tonight, and I have Kamara, Olave, Lutz, and the Saints defense all going. And I picked those guys over the 49ers defense. Chris Godwin. It was a toss-up between Olave and Godwin. I had to go with my guys. So I got a little bit extra riding on the game tonight.
I got to do some math. Can you read those? Can you say those? You got Olave, Lutz, the Saints defense, and Alvin Kamara?
Yes.
And you're down how many points?
72, I believe. Yeah.
You play PPR, right?
Yes.
All right, let's get my fantasy mind going.
Yeah, PPR gives me a fighting chance. ESPN has me at a 19% chance of winning.
I was going to say, so the Saints defense gives you an automatic 10 to start, and then we'll see what happens. So that marks it down to 62. If Olave gets 10 catches plus, you get down to 52. Let's say he has a good game and he gets you 20 plus. Say Kamara finds the end zone twice, you get 20 plus there. Bob, you got a puncher's chance.
Right.
Put it that way. We'll put it that way.
As in Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson chance, but hey, so you're saying there's a chance.
Exactly. Thanks, Lloyd. I appreciate that. But no, I think I'm up like 40. And guys got Olave and Godwin. So as long as both of them don't go crazy, I think I'll be okay. But you never know. We'll never know. Bob, how does Andy Dalton kind of change his fortunes, not just in prime time, but a lot of Saints fans have a sour taste in their mouth when it comes to Andy Dalton, especially after last week. The Saints shut out for the first time since 2001 last week. How does Andy Dalton, given Lutz missed a field goal, and with the circumstances, the Saints were in the red zone twice in the fourth quarter and just couldn't punch it in.
Mm-hmm.
So any other game, any other circumstance, the Saints probably don't get shut out. But how does Dalton get that bad and sour taste out of Saints fans' mouths, particularly tonight?
It's simple, Brendan. He's got to put the ball in the end zone. The last time we saw, the last two times we saw Andy Dalton in prime time, I think he got sacked 7 times against the Ravens and threw a pick. The previous time against the Cardinals, he threw 3 interceptions, 2 returned for a touchdown, and then 1 directly into the Cardinals end zone. So he's got to avoid mistakes like that. Most Saints fans that are bitching about Andy Dalton would have the same exact gripes about Jameis Winston. I'm convinced of this. I think Jameis Winston is getting a raw deal. I'll go on record as saying that, but I'll also go on record as saying Andy Dalton is not the reason why the New Orleans Saints are 4-8. Dalton hasn't played great. He has been a slightly above average quarterback, probably about the same statistically as what Jameis Winston would, if he were in the game. But they're different players. And a lot of the people that expected an explosive Saints offense because of Jameis Winston's ceiling, they're not getting that. They're blaming the quarterback. Well, no matter who's a quarterback, you would have had a hobbled and a clearly past his prime Jarvis Landry. You would have had no Michael Thomas. No matter who was at quarterback, you still would have been without 3 offensive line starting players for a 3-4 game stretch there. And you would have had an Alvin Kamara who, let's call a spade a spade. Kamara has not had a good year. So with all those things, it wouldn't have mattered who was a quarterback. You're still going to struggle. So for Andy Dalton to get the naysayers off of his case just a little bit, he's going to have to do what the entire Saints offense is going to have to do. Put the ball in the end zone, avoid turnovers, and do it early. Because this is make or break. I mean, there are no more tomorrows for the Saints team if they lose tonight. I think mathematically they still might be in it. It could be filed under the biblical miracle category. But if they win it, they have more than a puncher's chance, to borrow your saying. They are very much in the thick of the race if they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And not only that, but they pretty much control their own destiny. For that to happen, we just gave you folks the key to beating Brady and the Buccaneers on defense. On offense is take care of the football if you're Andy Dalton. Get the ball out of your hands quick and to your playmakers. When Dalton has played well, he has done exactly that. He has been on rhythm. He has had this offense on rhythm. If we see that happen early, I think it could be a good night for Andy Dalton and this passing offense against the Buccaneers secondary that's given up some yardage over the last few weeks.
And they're without a lot of key pieces in the secondary as well. We kind of glazed over that just a little bit. We didn't get into too much detail, but Sean Murphy-Bunting out. Antoine Winfield Jr., who's one of the best in the league, he's going to miss tonight. There's one more that I'm missing that's going to be out in the secondary tonight.
Winfield, Bunting, and Murphy-Bunting, Mike Edwards.
So you're missing 3 big pieces of your secondary tonight. There's going to be opportunities. Now, while I think that Dalton has the ability to have a good game tonight, I really think a lot of it's going to fall back onto the running backs in this rushing attack for New Orleans, because the other way, in my opinion, to beat Brady is just to keep him off the field. I mean, it sounds a lot. It's a lot easier said than done. But if you're able to possess the football, sustain long drives, and those long drives don't end in field goals, they end in touchdowns, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay because, like I said earlier, this is a Buccaneers team that offensively has really struggled this year. And this is a Saints defense that even Christian McCaffrey, who's played them twice this year for 2 different teams, but nonetheless, he's played them twice, said this is one of the best in football, and they're not even 100% healthy. This is a Saints team that is really going to have to rely on some old, gritty, not pretty type of offense to win today's game. And it's going to be, I think I referenced it multiple times this week in articles. It's going to be some old school smash mouth, grinded
Mhm.
out football. That's not everybody's cup of tea, right? There's a lot of people in the world that want to see a ton of points up on the board. They don't want to see a defensive chess match, if you will. But if you're a real football fan in my book, and you're a football purist, you live to watch primetime
Yeah.
games like this. You'd so much rather see something like this, and it's going to be really entertaining. So, Bob, before we give our final farewells of the pregame show and our predictions, I want to hear an X factor for you on both sides of the football. I'm going to put you in my seat for my weekly article. Who are your X factors this week for the Saints if they want to come out on top?
Listen, I kind of hinted at it on the offensive side. Rashid Shaheed, without those two Buccaneers safeties out, I think Shaheed could make some plays deep if the offensive line holds up and gives Dalton some time. And Rashid has showed me a little bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I first saw it in the Pittsburgh game, when from the press box I could get kind of the whole scope, and and I realized I was like, this kid's developing into a decent route runner. So it would not surprise me if Rashid Shaheed made some plays. And, like we said earlier, if the Saints offense is going to have some success, one of those guys have to step up, whether it's Shaheed, Callaway, Traquan Smith, Adam Troutman. I think it's going to be Shaheed. I look for him to have a few key plays. Again, the offense is going to run through Olave and Kamara, but a guy like Shaheed could be a difference. Defensively, the big names are going to have to be relied on. Cam, Davenport, Onyemata, Demario, Caden Ellis, Alante Taylor, Paulson, Adebo. They're all going to have to come up big. But you need interior pressure to beat Tom Brady. I think Kentavious Street, Shy Tuttle, who had a whale of a game last week, could come up big. But my X factor is a guy that we haven't heard a lot out of this year from a position that's been absolutely abysmal. Marcus May. I think Marcus May is going to have an interception of Tom Brady tonight in a key moment, or a forced fumble, some kind of turnover, something that the Saints have gotten very, very, very little of this year. I could see a guy like Marcus May coming up big and causing a turnover in a key moment of this ball game. He has been quiet all year. I love the signing and during the offseason. We've got to see some of that start to pay fruition down the stretch.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, remember, the Saints are dead last in the league, Bob, in plus minus when it comes to the turnover battle. If you take however many, interceptions, fumbles that the offense has had to fumble recoveries, interceptions for the defense, Saints very dead last in the league. It's been brutal because this has been an opportunistic Saints defense over the last five or 6 years, and they just haven't been that this year. I like what you said. I would personally, with the New Orleans connection, I'd much rather it be Tyrann Mathieu because he has yet, and same with Marcus May, neither of them have had their moment yet.
Right.
I thought Tyrann Mathieu had his moment. He's going to turn the corner when the Saints played in London. Didn't happen. But if Mathieu comes up with a big play today and the Saints are able to ride their own destiny and potentially make the playoffs, I'd give Tyrann, finally say, like, that's your moment. I'd love to see that for the Honey Badger. Bob, great pregame show. We're going to have more at halftime. We have a great show coming up this Wednesday. You know why, Bob? Because for half the show, we get to talk about whatever the heck happens in this game. But the back half of the show, we get to talk about 2011 New Orleans Saints since it's the bye week. Super excited to finally do that. Bob and I's favorite New Orleans Saints team. But Bob, before we get too ahead of ourselves, where can the people follow you on the World Wide Web? And you do your best job to convince the guys and gals to come back and join us for halftime.
Are we going to do predictions?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. Folks, I like this matchup for the Saints team. And they're starting to play very, very good defensive football, exactly like the unit we thought we'd see from the beginning of the year. But again, there's no tomorrows if they lose. So all the criticisms that Dennis Allen and the heart of this team has been facing all year long, we are now going to find out if, not how much, but if this team has any character whatsoever. But I think the Saints come out of here with a close, very intensely fought, high intensity defensive game. I think they're going to win 17-13.
Yeah, nice defensive matchup, Bob. I like that. Jason says that if we don't win, it pretty much kills our chances. Yeah, absolutely, do or die. Scoob wants to see some nastiness, some elbow throwing.
Oh, we will.
Throwing. Oh, you will absolutely see it tonight. Bob, I'm with you. I'll use more of a younger man's term. I
Wow.
gotta see if the I gotta see if the Saints got that dog in them. I gotta see it. And this is the game to prove if they do. Is the dog there? Are they there to fight? And that's one thing that's made the Saints so special over the years, that locker room chemistry, that tenacity, the willingness to come together as a brotherhood and win football games. All of that gets tested tonight. And if the Saints come out flat, I'm finally going to start understanding a little bit more, just a teeny bit, of the people calling for Dennis Allen's job. If the Saints absolutely lay an egg tonight, yeah, Dennis has got to be on the hot seat.
Yep.
But if the Saints come out and they play a good game, even in a loss, I think he's okay. But I do have the Saints winning this football game. It's really hard to beat a division opponent twice, especially a division opponent that's had your number the last couple years and that talking about the Saints having Tampa Bay's number. So I'm going to take the Saints in one of the ugliest Monday Night Football scores you'll ever see. I'm going to take the Saints 10-7 in a true defensive masterclass by some of the best linebackers in football, if you ask me.
So, no, it's going to be 34-31 tonight, but whatever.
You're absolutely right, because we called it so low. And everybody who's watching that's a usual watcher, Scoob, Jason, JGP, list goes on, Be Kind. I know Gypsy's in here somewhere. All you guys know that's a fact. If we call it to be a low-scoring game, it's going to be a high-scoring game, and vice versa. But now, Bob, where can everybody follow you on the World Wide Web? And
folks, thank you for tuning in to our pregame show. Make sure you join us at halftime, like Brendan said. But in the meantime, you can follow me over on Facebook, Bob Rose, ROSE. I'm on Twitter at BobbyR2613. All of our works can be found through the Saints News Network, at Saints News on Twitter. And of course, we always talk about our Bayou Blitz Wednesday night podcast. It's spurred on by our Bayou Blitz Facebook page and our Bayou Blitz Twitter page, which is at Bayou. Brendan, help me. At Bayou Blitz Pod.
There we go. Come on. I knew you knew it. I knew you had that dog in you. For myself, you could follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BTBoy. You could follow my work with the Saints News Network. Got some fantasy football. Got your X Factors every week. Bob and I have an awesome show coming up on Wednesday, like I mentioned before. But don't forget, you can also join us for halftime. Hopefully everybody's happy. People get a little bit of cups of coffee in you. Make sure that, there you go, Bob. That wasn't creepy at all. But nonetheless, hopefully we got some smiles at halftime. Hopefully you guys have had your coffee and you're ready for a fun late night of Monday Night Football. It's the New Orleans Saints versus the Tampa Bay Bucs, Week 13, in what feels like the most important NFC South clash of the year. Until halftime, drink some coffee, find your peace, spread love, practice positivity. That's Bob Rose. I'm Brendan Boylan. We'll see you at halftime.